The environmental costs of mountaintop mining valley fill operations for aquatic ecosystems of the Central Appalachians by Lily, Tara, Savannah, Angel, and Landon. What is mountaintop removal and mountaintop valley filling? Coal mining is the process of removing coal from the earth. Coal is a rock that is used mainly for electricity, and when burnt, coal can release sulfur and nitrogen into the atmosphere. Mountaintop valley filling is the process of blowing up the tops of the mountains to access the coal underneath. Coal mining processes such as MTVF are regulated by the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act of 1977 and enforced by both local and federal governments. Effects of mountaintop valley filling. Aquatic ecosystems suffer from mountaintop valley filling since the waterways are buried by sediment from the mining and contaminated with harmful chemicals. All aspects of the ecosystem are affected. Invertebrates die because of the contamination, as well as vertebrates. The waterways are buried by sediment, or the flow of water is blocked by sediment, disrupting the ecosystem. These organisms are affected because they live downstream of the mountains that are being mined.
This slide, we discuss a figure from the paper. In the previous slide, we discussed the effects of it, and this figure goes over the biodiversity of the Appalachian region. So in the first panel, we see the hotspots for at-risk fish and mussel species. In the second panel, we see a salamander that is one of the affected species of this loss of biodiversity. And then in the third panel, we see a hotspot map showing rarity of biodiverse species. Then the last one, we see the aquatic diversity. And as you can see, these are all very concentrated in the Appalachian region. And this mountaintop coal mining buries these important streams and headwaters, which then leads to loss of biodiversity in these ecosystems. I think that last panel there does a great job of showing the number of species in this region, with it being heavily concentrated in that Appalachian. How exactly is this biodiversity lost to mountaintop coal mining? First, the Appalachian Mountains are home to some of the oldest mountain ranges in the world. They support a large and biodiverse ecosystem. The headwaters formed from the Appalachian Mountains in the Appalachian Mountain region feed into many of the major U.S. river systems. So when mountaintop coal mining occurs, the debris is then dumped into these Appalachian streams and the headwaters that start here, and that carries throughout the entire U.S. river system. And once the debris buries these streams, you lose the local habitats that support these ecosystems, which therefore you lose a ton of biodiversity simply because the habitat and the ecosystem is destroyed from this.
Local environmental impacts include water quality, flooding, human health, and soil and land degradation. Water quality is impacted because mining results in pollution of local waterways. Toxic chemicals are also being used, which contaminates water sources that is harmful to the human body and residents around. Flooding is also a local environmental impact. Through valley fills and the way they are constructed can cause damage to drainage patterns, which leads to flooding and changes to the ecosystem within the area. Human health is also impacted. Communities near mountaintop removal sites experience contamination and pollution. This leads to cancer, heart disease, and mental health from the quality of life in the area they are living in. Lastly, soil and land degradation. Mountaintop removal results in topsoil removal. After mining tops off mountains, land is not in the original condition that it was in. This leads to unstable agriculture due to poor soil quality, and erosion would be more common since the terrain is compromised. Far-reaching environmental impacts include climate change, loss of biodiversity in ecosystems, watershed scale and stream hydrology, and sulfate. With climate change, coal mining releases methane into the atmosphere. Coal combustion is one of the main contributors to climate change with the rise of temperatures. Loss of biodiversity in ecosystems. MTVF relates to getting the tops off the mountains, which then leads to destroyed ecosystems. Many plants and animals are found on higher elevations, so with this we would not have those types of wildlife anymore. Thus, aquatic ecosystems, the streams would no longer exist once destroyed. Watershed scale and stream hydrology is a far-reaching environmental impact as well. The timing and magnitude of the stream's flows results from complex interactions between rainfall, plants, topographic relief, and soil properties of all land above a drainage point. Lastly, sulfate. Burning coal during mountaintop removal processes causes more sulfate to be released. Sulfate being released is phytotoxic to many aquatic plants and can harm freshwater ecosystems by making them more sensitive to nutrient pollution.
Progress and pitfalls, reclamation and remediations. Stream creation versus stream restoration. Stream creation involves mined land and reconfigured mine drains or building new channels that are similar in physical form, width, and depth to the streams that were buried. These channels may be increased by adding wood or arranging rocks to help create physical habitat. Stream restoration varies from removing ongoing impacts to a stream like preventing toxic inputs and letting the stream recover on its own to enhancing habitat in the stream like planting vegetation and full scale restoration that involves manipulation of existing stream channel. Here on the right, you can see the stream creation, and on the left you can see the stream restoration. Structure and function are not equivalent. The natural channel design approach to stream restoration is not an ecological restoration approach, and it has never been shown to promote ecological mountaintop mining impacts on aquatic ecosystem recovery. Results from recent study point in the opposite direction and may cause damage to streams in need of restoration by decreasing species diversity. The approach is fundamentally focused on channel structure and not ecological function. Failure to address ecosystem function. Functional systems are healthy systems that are living and support ecological processes, which are the processing of nutrients, decomposition of matter, etc. Mitigation plans with mountaintop mining have not used methods for directing, measuring ecological functions. However, these processes must be measured to determine how it affects the ecosystem. What is being done to mitigate the local and longitudinal impacts? This change in the chemistry of headwater streams can have important local and watershed scale impacts on aquatic organisms and ecosystem functions. The establishment of viable soils and vegetation at a mine site and adding lime or other materials that neutralize acidity and cover of topsoil to promote vegetation growth.
What can you conclude about mountaintop removal? Mountaintop removal is dangerous and can lead to destruction of habitats as well as pollution in waterways, affecting the biodiversity and health of the aquatic creatures that inhabit the area. It can be concluded that the effects of mountaintop mining with valley fill operations are long-term and affect a large portion of land and animals that can extend up to a mile for just one mine. What could be done to improve the current deficiencies in reclamation and mitigation? The research from the article emphasizes on the long-term ecological deficiencies. Education behind reasoning for the current regulations, as well as advocating for better regulatory standards, can help improve the current deficiencies in reclamation and mitigation.